There's a bit of a buzz in the MTB and EMTB world about crank lengths. Not so long ago, we were all running similar lengths.
Yes, 170s, 175 were kind of the norm, if you like. But with advances in technology, e-bikes and riding style, manufacturers are experimenting with as little as 145mm.
That is crazy. Now, does crank length really matter? Well, thanks to 5Dev, we're going to find out.
So today I have brought Blake to the Mendip Hills, one of my locals in fact, where we're gonna see if shorter crank lengths really do make a difference, and by doing this on a technical climb where sort of the pros and cons of it should be exaggerated even more.
Oh, before we start tackling those climbs, let's talk about the bikes we'll be riding.
Okay, so the bike that I'm riding today is the Canyon Strivon CFR. Now this is a mixed wheel size bike, of course, full carbon. It's got the Bosch Performance Line CX motor, giving 85 Newton meters of torque, of course, with a 750 watt-hour battery. 170mm up front, 160 out back. Tyres and wheels, Industry 9 Grade 300 wheel set on there. Like I said, mixed wheel size, Pirelli Scorpions, 19 PSI out the back and 21 PSI up the front. This comes as stock with some 165mm cranks.
Now I'm borrowing the King's bike himself of EMBN, Steve Jones's bike. This is his brand new white E160 RSX e-bike. Now it's a large size frame, it's 165mm of travel front and rear, but not like Rich is running a mixed wheel size. I'm running full 29er. So from factory I've swapped out those wheels for these Industry 9 wheel set. These are the EN ones, standing for Enduro Spec wheels. Now the tyre setup exactly like Richard's. The pressure I'm running on the front is 21, on the rear is 19. I'm running the same motor, the Bosch Performance Line CX motor with an 85 Newton meters of torque, and again the battery is 750 watt hours as well. But the only thing is, this is aluminium, his is carbon. From factory, these come with 165mm crank length as well, a bit like Richard's. Oh man, I'm super excited. Rich has invited me here to his local place. I've never ridden here before, and I've been told that this is quite a technical climb. So let's see what he has in tail for us. Rich!
Blake, I am glad you asked, because today's climb has got all of it in it. There's varying gradients from pretty mellow to very steep, and we've got every terrain under the sun. So we've got this flat, very slick rock. We've got pointy rock gardens, we've got mud, we've got leaves, we've got roots. There really is everything that should sort of highlight the differences between different length cranks. And let's face it, we're going to need to look at things like how smoothly and how easily can we get the power down, pedaling through very rough sections, and of course, crank strikes. So with that, let's get to the start, but the bottom. Okay, Blake, first climb of the day, stock cranks, 165s all round. Let's hit the climb, cue epic montage.
Oh, let's do it, Rich. Man, how cool was that? E-bikes are the best for climbing. I gotta say, I don't ride them much, but that was incredible.
165s then, Blake. First impressions, what are we thinking? Pedal strikes?
They worked, but I got pedal strikes, yeah. You have to pick your line wisely.
Yeah, likewise, I actually did hit, not even the pedal, a crank strike at the end of my crank. So what I'm wondering is, obviously, when we switch it up, are we going to be feeling a little more stable, because it's got quite slippery because the rain has come out here as well. So feet close together.
Feet close together, I reckon, get the power down. You know, this little pedal pumping going.
Another thing I noticed, like powering through the really chunky bit of that, I was trying to just pedal all the way through it, and I was like a little cautious, obviously, as you would be. And I want to know if I stick the shorter cranks, 10mm, it's quite a chunk of distance.
Yep.
can I just pedal through that and get through it? Easy.
Oh, let's find out. Let's go change up.
So with our first climbs done, it was eventful to say the least. Now before we switch out our cranks to the 155s, let's look at a few of the reasons why you might do this.
Now, for most cheap manufacturers out there in EMTB world, the crankset is one of them that suffers the most from this. Brands like 5Dev offer a top quality crank designed from scratch with e-bikes in mind. Just remember to get the right fitment for the bike as well as the length you want.
Theoretically, shorter crank arms are stiffer and stronger than longer crank arms of the same design. These crank arms are specifically designed for EMTBs and the abuse that they're going to be put through.
Riding stance. Now this one you'll feel a little bit more when it comes to descending. A shorter crank arm will square up your stance on the bike. Also will help give you a little bit more stability out there on the trail and a little bit more power delivery. One way to think about it is if you were to stand with your feet side by side like you would on a motorbike, you have the most range of motion available in your ankles, knees and hips. As you start to move your feet further apart, forwards and backwards, you start to lose that range of motion. The more you lose that, the more you lose the ability to deal with impacts and forces you might feel as you ride. Also, you start to feel like you lose a lot more power the more your feet are spread out. Just think, right? If you stand up with your feet wide apart like this, and if you were to jump, you wouldn't get as much spring out of your legs. You're more naturally to go feet together to get the maximum pop to get a bigger jump.
If you've got any niggling injuries, maybe hips, knees, lower backs, well potentially shorter cranks could help with this, reducing the range of motion and therefore the stresses put on these areas.
Pedal sensitivity. Now this one's a little bit difficult to describe. With a shorter crank, it's easier to get the power down quicker than it is on a longer crank. Now when it comes to a tricky situation out there on the trail, having a shorter crank is better to get those quick bursts of power. You need to move your feet less to rotate the cranks the same amount, which translates putting that power down faster. That means in technical sections where you need to get those short bursts of power down quicker, the shorter crank is definitely going to be an advantage.
Now, as I said earlier, all things being equal, switching to a shorter length crank should give you more ground clearance. This, of course, then should reduce pedal strikes. However, if you've already got cranks in the 160 to 165mm range, there could be a number of other sort of setup things that you can do to help also reduce this. We need to talk more on this, but Blake, before we do, let's switch it up to the 155s.
Yes, please.
Blake, the swap has been made. We're on to shorter cranks. The 155s are fitted.
Yes, we have. I got the black ones, you got the silver ones.
Yep, makes sense. So we're going to push on and we're actually going to head on further up the track and it only gets gnarlier from here, bud. So we're really going to notice the differences, I think.
We are.
See ya!
He is definitely going to struggle up that one section. It's like baby head rocks everywhere.
Really slippery.
Oh, yeah! Yeah! Richard! I missed that. That was good. I hit crank once through there. I thought I was going to hit so many times, but I didn't. Go on, Red! Go on, Red! Go on, Red! Go on, Red!
So slippery.
God, God, oh my flipping goodness.
Okay, dude, that's the run with the 155s on. It only got harder. And, you know, I want to know, what did you think? What were your first impressions?
First impressions, I reckon Tony Bow will struggle going up there with no dabs. It was super slippery. But going through those rocky bits when you got the momentum and you found your way up these rocks, it was actually all right. I was going like, oh, I'm going to hit a rock, yeah? No.
So you were able, you found you were able to just pedal over
Just pedal over, but there is some parts where, you know, the rock is sticking up like this and you are going to pedal strike.
Yeah, I did pedal strike for sure. It does just get horrendously rocky up there. It gets way worse than sort of what we were even doing earlier. I did find that I was able to sort of carefree pedal a little bit more. I think that's a good way of putting it, just sort of less stress, less worry. And also little bonus cranks, we'll call them.
Yeah.
So those kind of were easier to achieve, I think is probably the best way to put it. So
yeah, and in little short sections where you can just get a rapid fire going on, the shorter ones definitely helped.
Where you want to just keep on the power, otherwise if you stopped, So definitely, well, you know, there are definitely some interesting talking points there. I think there are some benefits. You know, dropping 10 mil is a sizable notice as well. 5 mil?
I think so, Matt, just imagine going even shorter.
So a big part of the hype around crank length then is the reduction of pedal strikes, or the potential reduction. But there's lots of things that can affect this. First up, geometry, how low your bottom bracket is, and even your seat angle. Technique, timing your pedal strokes and positioning your body weight. Suspension setup and tune. Too soft, you're going to sit into the travel and reduce your ground clearance. Line choice, bad line choice won't save you from crank strikes. Tyre choice, narrower tyres are going to lower your bottom bracket height compared to wider tyres. Pedal choice, now flat pedals and clipless pedals can be quite thin, but if you go for a thick, chunky pedal, you're going to rob yourself of more of that ground clearance. So shorter is always better. Well, as always with anything setup related, it's a bit of a compromise. Let's talk fit. Now, we're all different shapes and sizes, so just banging on the shortest cranks possible isn't necessarily always going to be the greatest thing to get your bike working as comfortably as it can for you. Cadence. Now, shorter cranks are generally going to increase your cadence, and depending upon the motor you have, this could be a good or a bad thing. Stability. Some riders just like the feel of a wider stance, especially when it gets faster and rougher. Bike fit then. So if you want to go from longer to shorter cranks to get the same fit, you're going to need to raise your saddle up higher. Now for some riders, this may throw off sort of how the bikes feel. You might think you've got a little less room to maneuver. However, obviously we do descend most of the time with our saddles down, so it shouldn't make too much of an issue. Cost. Now, while some parts that are going to change the fit and feel of your bike are relatively affordable, things like potentially your grips, your saddle, your pedals, or even a stem, cranks generally aren't one of them. So that's worth bearing in mind if you are going to make that big upgrade.
Oh, Rich, how good was that?
What do you think of my local?
Dude, it's incredible. Slippery when wet though.
Very.
And the sun has come out for the end of our day.
All right, beautiful. Right now, what we want to know though, people, is what do you think when it comes to shorter cranks? Worth it or not? Would you consider going down to a 5 mil shorter crank, a 10 mil, a 15, a 20, who knows what?
Tell you what, I have been in the dark ages. I've always run 170. Never have I gone down to 165. But now I've gone 155. I think
your eyes have been opened.
They've been opened. I'm going shorter.
Interesting, interesting. Like we said, let us know in the comments down below. But from the pair of us, from the Mendips, thank you for watching.
Yeah. Cup of tea?
Cup of tea.